Thank you very much. That means that I'm quite old, but anyway, having such a big CV. Anyway, dear Mark and dear students, I really enjoy so much being with you this 2 days. I had the opportunity talking with you yesterday and today, and I must tell you that thank you very much for inviting me. It was a very, very big experience for me. Anyway, I would like to thank the Institute for this conference. This conference, which is really such a well-timed conference, important, which is taking place in a very difficult for the whole world and especially for Europe period. My approach to the speech would be different a month ago, or even 15 days ago, or I could say even this morning. I heard first the news and then I came here. I didn't know if we have the war or not. Anyway, the reason is obvious. The rapid events that are taking place in Eastern Europe and other parts of the world, and which affect world peace and stability, natural effect, diplomatic channels, the world opinion, and of course my opinion. We live in a period of turbulence, a period where development from an obvious process that it was for many decades, today is a request for many countries, especially for some countries like mine, Greece. It is a request of vital importance. And I'm here to say today a few words about the role that cultural diplomacy can play to the solution of contemporary issues. Of course, in a world where 90% of what happens and is disseminated in a daily basis, related and it relates directly or indirectly to economic issues, in our era of stock markets, for someone to talk about culture and cultural diplomacy maybe sound strange and even utopic. However, if we think a little bit deeper, a little bit further than our daily routine, we will see that precisely this area of human activity that clearly lacks today is possibly the most appropriate if used in the correct way to lead to the surpassing of many crises, to provide solutions to many international and national issues, to contribute to peace procedures, to give incentives for many forms of development, to contribute to the welfare of people and the happiness of modern man. With the term of culture diplomacy, we of course do not only mean the actions aiming at the preservation and dissemination of cultural goods or countries or individuals. This more or less happens. We mean the active and coordinated use of these goods and services that accompany them, with systematic and target action towards the tightening of relations of nations and individual, the creation of development incentives in a national or international level, and the promotion of creative initiatives. Thinking of the above, in my mind, come two images that very recently the whole world saw at the same day, at the same news bulletins, and which I believe display what is and what is not cultural diplomacy and what it can offer. The first image concerns the situation in Ukraine, where obviously misguided political and economic handlings, in conjunction with geopolitical aims, caused unprecedented violence and bloodshed, and led to turmoil with possibly more serious consequences for this country, for the wider region, for Europe, and perhaps for the whole world. It is clear that in this picture, any form of culture is absent. On the other hand, the second simultaneous image our world saw is the culmination, the implementation, the tangible result of a genuine form of culture diplomacy. And now I use my capacity as a vice chairperson of the International Olympic Truce Foundation of the International Olympic Committee. We that were at Sochi during the Winter Olympic Games, and the millions that viewed the Games from television, saw the results of an activity that is based on and serves principles and values of a form of culture diplomacy. Ancient, timeless, universal values that were born 3,000 years ago in Greece, but are equally vital and acceptable today across the length and the breadth of Earth. Values such as the harmonious development of body and mind, noble competition, equal participation, values that create mutual understanding, transaction between nations, and friendship among people. Historically, it is well known the story of Anacharsis, a Scyth leader who the Athenian legislators Solon hosted in Athens. He could not understand, Anacharsis, how people tried so much voluntarily, submitted themselves to so much physical and mental efforts in order to contest for a wild olive branch, the prize at the Olympic Games. On this olive branch, Solon had answered, are neat, inextricably principles and values that are more valuable than all the gold of earth: freedom, noble competition, participation, mutual respect, solidarity, and mutual understanding. Of course, the use of cultural diplomacy is not always easy or effective. Cultural diplomacy should be used at the correct timing and with the required preparation. Today, the raw cynical interests are those that are primarily promoted and collide in a daily basis in transnational, national, and individual level. This creates the everyday situation our world experiences today, and of course, cannot be resolved with the arts or with sport. However, the use of cultural diplomacy at times of global, over national crisis in historical documented to have achieved glorious results. Let us remember that today's economic and commercial giant, China, years before buying the largest proportion of the world's global debt, decades before starting to produce and to handle the biggest proportion of the world's production of goods, was an enclosed communist empire, the doors of which were opened by cultural diplomacy with the well-known table tennis tournament. Similarly, we should remember the cultural diplomacy was primarily the driving force behind Gorbachev's perestroika, which led to the final collapse of the Soviet blocs and the authoritarian communist regimes that they were dominant at the countries of Eastern Europe after the Second World War. However, the biggest and most historic example of the application and success of culture diplomacy is certainly the achievement of Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great would have been a simple great conqueror, like dozens in history, if apart from his sword, he had not also used culture diplomacy. If he did not disseminate Greek culture up to India and vice versa. The various cultures of the peoples of the East up to the Mediterranean, emphasizing on culture and mixing culture norms, Alexander the Great and his successors create a whole historical period that still bears his name, the Alexandrian period, a whole civilization which was used as a vehicle for the transmission of Christianity to the West. St. Paul uses cultural diplomacy, bringing to the Athenians the new unknown God. Moreover, he becomes dean of cultural diplomacy, since he confesses that to the Jewish I act as a Jew, and to the Gentiles as a Gentile, in order to reach them and teach them. The fact that the Slavs are today Christians, Orthodox, is not, of course, due to the sword of the Byzantine emperors, who used it many times, the sword. It is because of cultural diplomacy. Among the others were the monks Cyril and Methodius, spread Christianity and created the Syriac alphabet, which is used until today. So history teaches that cultural diplomacy is many times more effective than any form of violent enforcement and surely produces longer lasting results. Education is the broader sense of the term, is the vehicle for the dissemination and consolidation of cultural diplomacy. Today, the infrastructure that creates and disseminates education is infinite, very fast and global. Media, the internet, the social network can instantly transmit not only information, but also knowledge and motives at the same time, at the very moment, to the whole world. If someone would come from another planet experiencing these possibilities of our world, I'm sure he would really think he's in a paradise. But unfortunately, our world not only is not a paradise, but even worse, glides towards hell. After the fall of communism, we all believed that we were moving towards a world of freedom, democracy, creation, development, prosperity, eventually human happiness. And where are we today? 25 years in a world of bloody local conflicts, particularly in the Near and Middle East, in Northern Africa, in Ukraine today. In a world with an unexpected financial crisis that literally sweeps mainly the countries of Southern Europe. My country, Greece, for example, the past few years is experiencing such a financial and humanitarian crisis that can only be compared with war periods. Unemployment, especially among the young, has reached levels, unprecedented levels. The middle class has been crushed. Polarization is daily moving towards broader segments of the population. Similar, if not so tragic situations are being experienced by other European countries, such as Spain, Portugal, Italy, while it is historically almost certain that if this disease is not treated now, will eventually affect countries which today seem healthy countries. And the causes of the crisis, no matter how they are explained, and the economic aspirins that are offered certainly do not cure the situation. And one wonders if leaders like de Gaulle, Adenauer, Churchill would deal with today's crisis in a similar way. I tried briefly to outline the importance of cultural diplomacy in human history, believing that in today's world, it can be extremely useful. The use of cultural diplomacy can lead to a global culture of peace. Dear students, after the Second World War, the vision of a united Europe moved nations and peoples and led to the European community first and to the European Union later. This vision, before it was even completed, began to tarnish, to fade, to be questioned. Before it is too late, I believe that we must renew it, expand it, to make it again attractive. I believe that the European leaders should, apart from economic and political models, try to use cultural diplomacy. Now is their historical duty. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Now it's time for questions or comments. I think we have here already.
Thank you for your presentation, ma'am. I'm Taru from India. Ma'am, as you said that cultural diplomacy had been used by your leaders previously, and now with how times have changed over a period of time and how issues are altogether very different, and even though the financial crisis probably was a surprise to the common man, but the government had to know that it was coming at some point of time because the debt was being raised quite a lot. So now is it that cultural diplomacy is the only option for countries like yourself to, as a strategy to be adopted because a support of the EU, of the world is required? Or is it as you are adopting, is it a feature as you are going to adopt as your leaders have to tackle the current situation?
First of all, I have to say that in your country, the first step with Pakistan was they played cricket together. You know that this was the first step for the approach of the two nations. And this was really very, very important. Of course, it's, you cannot, speaking about peace, the politicians can impose peace, but education can inspire peace to the people. And this is very important, and we have to fight for that. It's not easy. I mean, especially this time when we have the problems in Ukraine. I think the situation now, not only for Europe, but the whole world, is really, really very difficult, especially these days. From one day to the other, you cannot realize what can happen. It's very difficult for the whole world. I mean, it's a big question. Will last European Union? The unification of Europe. What's going to happen? Are we going to another strategy or to another model of Europe? And what's going to happen? You have United States, America from one side, you have Putin from the other side. So more than ever, cultural diplomacy, in the sense that I explained, is really the leading force. that can inspire peace, and of course give the solution of the today issues.
Any other comments or questions?
Καλησπέρα κυρία Πετραλιά.
Καλώς το να.
I am Vangelis, I'm from Greece. In your speak, also in your last question, you mentioned the significance of education.
Something is going to happen with that today. I don't know how with the others there were no problem. It's only with me. Why? I'm too, I think a little bit.
Okay, the significance of education for the dissemination and consolidation of cultural diplomacy. Since the values of cultural diplomacy move in lockstep with the ideals of the Olympic movement, I would like to ask you, in your capacity as Vice President of International Olympic Truce Foundation, what are the initiatives of the Foundation towards the creation of a culture of peace through the Olympic education?
You know, I must tell you that the last years is a very big worldwide movement with the International Olympic Committee and the United Nations. It's how to reach peace and development through sports. This was the main subject, the main issue in the Congress, and a Congress we had in the United Nations in June with Ban Ki-moon, with people from all over the world, speaking that sports is a driving force for development and for peace. So the foundation of Olympic Truce, for example, I must tell you first of all, because it's difficult sometimes to give a definition. What is peace? Is it peace, no war? What is peace? Who can tell me? I'm going to ask you a question because I'm really very interested in that. What means peace? Who is going to tell me? Sorry, I'm giving you the, but I have this now in my mind. I want to hear someone of you saying, what is peace? I'm sorry? Yes, that's right. This was. Is it now? Shouldn't have European Union, for example, having common policy for foreign affairs or economic. And for example, why countries that they are members of the NATO have been evaded?
Well, it's an international strategy.
Yes.
We are pushed somehow by the Americans.
Yes,
but the European Union project has been for peace
yes,
and remains for
but
peace.
what is the definition of peace?
Peace.
The existing of European Union. This is what you said.
Yeah.
Yes, good.
I
Right.
expanded a bit.
Who else? Where are you, Mark? We want your opinion as well. Come.
For me,
Where is the chairman? The leader. Where is the leader?
for me, peace is when the powerful people, okay, the people have the power, they don't really care to have more than they really need.
Yes, right. So the foundation about truce, first of all, truce is Greek. It's what they call, the name of truce is in Greek, ancient Greeks, is ekechiria. What means ekechiria? 2 weeks before the games, even more, before the games of the ancient Olympic Games, I mean, all the member states of the world, of this time, of the ancient world, and all the leaders decided not to fight one against the other. So a month or a few weeks before the games, they had the spondophori, which means the heralds. They went, the heralds, as ambassadors of peace at this time. This is the ambassador of peace, as they have now in the United Nations. They went to all the cities, all the states, city-states, And they announced the games. So they put down the arms. That means they put down the arms. And this is what is called truce. But you leave the arms down. But to have peace, they should have negotiate. So this is a Truce Foundation. And I must tell you that every time when we have the Olympic Games, we have the Winter and the Summer Olympic Games, there is a resolution in the United Nations about, from the country that hosts the games. For example, it was England in 2012, and it was Russia for Sochi. And for the first time in the history of United Nations, all the countries, I think there are 139, something like that, they have signed the resolution about the Olympic truce. And even Syria, I mean, in 2012, all the countries for the first time. And of course, Syria, they stopped for 2 days only the war in 2012. Anyway, it's a negotiation and it's education. So what we do, we educate at schools. We started in Greece with books like, for example, Respecting Diversity. We have many immigrants in Greece and illegal immigrants at schools. So through the Olympic values, because the Olympic values are the cornerstone of our society, of our civilization, of our soul. This is what transform our characters. You know, as a child, my father was the president of the International Olympic Academy. And also he was a representative of Greece to the International Olympic Commission. So I was very young. And I went with my father, and my father pushed me to go to ancient Olympia, where they made the campus from students. And we do this now as well, from all over the world, that they studied about the Olympic values, because Olympic Games are not sport. It's the thought of games. It's something else. And I went with my father to ancient Olympia. That was so, ooh la la. It was a nightmare. Having 40 degrees, I was 14 years old. I wanted to be with boyfriends in the beach. And instead of that, I was hearing all the time about the Olympic values, about solidarity, and really, I was so, it was a nightmare, you know. I dreamed for a beach with a boyfriend, and I was there. And then I must tell you that now, in the age I am now, and even before, this is what make of my character. This is what make for my thoughts. Whatever I did in my life is inspired from all these things that I heard all these years, and by people that they really gave their life for the Olympism. And of course, someone can say, well, it's not a utopia or whatever, speaking about that. I could say no, because all these values, if we practice in our everyday life, little by little and little by little, they give to the people the equal opportunities. And what, as a politician also, I was really, because I served 6 times in different ministries, and there are 14 laws that have my name in my country. So whatever I did was that, giving to the people the opportunities, and all the people should have the access to the point, to have the access there. And when you have the access, then you can create your own capacities. But what a political system, what through the Olympic ideals do is to give to the people the equal opportunities just to reach the access point. And from the access point, then people can have and their own capacities and work with them. So this is the beliefs of the Olympic values.
No, I want to say something for conclude. I am half 75. Agree with you how you say. I don't know if you know. I think for sure you know Juan Antonio Samaran.
Yes.
Okay, this man was living. Well, he's from Barcelona, but not exactly from Barcelona. He's from close to Granollers. This man was, because rest in peace is dead. It was the cousin of my grandpa.
Oh.
And yeah. The common surname was the second surname, and always my grandpa says that, for example, there was a conflict in the 80s in Spain. Well, it was almost important between, do you know, who has to organize the Olympic Games. It was between Sevilla and Barcelona. And this man arrives with the Spanish president an agreement. The agreement was, okay, the Olympic Games are going to be for Barcelona, and Sevilla is going to have the high-speed train. And if you think this is nice, because you are not allowing a conflict in that country. But anyway, if you think it's not nice, why you have to make that kind of agreements in a country for organize the Olympic Games? Because if you're thinking in the economic and we are talking about sometimes about trips and tourists and all this stuff, why the high-speed train had to be first in Sevilla, Madrid, when the several part of the people are making, for example, Barcelona-Madrid, because Barcelona is not an international airport because the Spanish government, they don't want. And indeed, if the Barcelona has to organize Olympic Games. So yeah, I am agree with you because the Olympic Games can, sometimes can refuse some conflicts for the values of the Olympic Games, but sometimes let me the lessons of be careful because we say in Spanish, not everything is gold.
Of course it's not. So, first of all, I don't know about what you are saying. I didn't know that. I was in the Games of Barcelona, and I've been to Barcelona also before the Games. So first of also Samaranch was from Barcelona. He transformed the Olympic movement in a huge movement with a lot of problems, because even the Olympic movement few years ago, after Atlanta, really had a lot of problems. And one of the reasons that the Olympic Games of Athens of 2004 has been hosted by Greece was because the members of the Olympic movement, they wanted to be, how to say, clean their souls and their reputation by giving, no, they didn't give it, we deserve anyway. So the Games in Athens, because it was a cradle of the Olympic Games and the Olympic values. So of course, Samaranch wanted for his life, for after he's dead, to be someone, he wanted to his own city, the Games. And of course, what they've done, you have done, you the Spaniards, I mean, Barcelona changed completely. Nothing to do Barcelona before and Barcelona after. And of course, this is the post-Olympic Games legacy. This is the main thing, is the legacy after the Games, because the legacy has two cornerstones. One is that you develop the city, the country, the city, because the city takes the games, not the country. You develop the city. Tourism, for example, so many things about tourism, ecology, green, everything. So this is one, and the other one is the cultural legacy that the games leave to a country after the games. So let's let Samaranch where he is now. We lost our boss. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. My name is Ksenia, and I'm from Russia.
Oh,
Yes.
fantastic. Congratulations with Sochi.
Thank you. And I have a question.
The most expensive games ever.
Maybe.
Yes, but incredible.
Nice. The question is. No,
I say because
let's
I don't want to. I want you to change your question. That's why I say all this.
I'm not going to do that, and I'm trying to avoid the comments on Sochi. But 20-some years later, when I'm not going to Soviet Union or whatever Russia did during that time, but 20-something years later, when Soviet Union collapsed and all the countries were so happy to get independence, what we see now, for example, from a Russian perspective, is most of a lot of millions, maybe, I don't know, thousands of people from all the stunned countries are coming back to Russia because they do not have a job in their own countries. The first thing you come to when you come to Belgrade and you see from the Serbian airport is the Gazprom and Lukoil sign, because there are main investors in the country. All the Eastern European countries that were connected to Russia, they go to find employment in other Western European countries because the situation is still not very prosperous and so on. And that during 25 years, we still have this situation. The question is, let's look at Africa, for example. That was Africa.
Africa?
Yes. That was for so many years colonized by mostly France and England. That was like, let's look at Cameroon, that was divided just by two governments, and one part is French-speaking and other is English-speaking. Let's look at Benin in Nigeria, where they just, it's officially made the border, and like the people from same tribe, for example, found themselves living partially in Benin, partially in Nigeria. Why we still have this problem with Russia having done what they did, and nobody ever talks about what impact of French and English colonization is there on Africa, which is still has a lot to improve.
First of all, in Africa, you know that there is a big effort because many years ago they had the colonies. And all over the world, even in India, they had the colony, the British colony. And of course, in Africa, it's still a war. It's not only between the tribes, but it is because some are with the French, some no, or the English. So it's not Africa. The problem in Africa has not been solved yet. There are also a lot of profits. I mean, the governments, for example, now what's happened in Ukraine, all the big deal is for Crimea. Crimea has been given by Khrushchev to Russia 60 years ago. And most of the people of Ukraine are Russians. So the culture they have, and they were okay until now. They live together. I mean, the Ukraine with the Ukrainian with the Russians. They were together. They're all from Ukraine. And now it's the problem because you have it's the political game for domination, and who is going to be the leader of the region. Come back after 25 years. After 25 years. and with the European Union to really show weak. In Greece, you can't imagine if you do not live there. You cannot imagine how people suffer. All people suffer in Greece. There is no people that they don't suffer. I mean, is crushed. The middle class, which was the leading class of the country, is crushed, is squeezed. And everything is politics. So we need a strong European Union. Now, I don't want to, to shift everything in politics, but the big game happened to our country. It was the crash between euro and dollar. This was all the story. It was political reasons. For political reasons happened whatever happened in Greece. It was a political big game of the region. The internet, the Facebook. We had the Arabian Revolution. It is a revolution made with Facebook. With Facebook. And this is the big, I mean, the strength of the social media now. And now you see that there are problems in the area, in the North Africa, Egypt, turbulence all the time, Syria, even in Turkey, other problems. Now it's Ukraine. It's a very difficult situation, but we are very optimistic, and for sure, I mean, I'm sure that the people, the big strength are you, the people, and especially you, the young people, because the older politicians, I don't think that they tried, but they didn't have any great success. So cross your fingers, and we hope that you will be better than we were. Thank you.